Hey, Arman here. Welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show, where we cover training, nutrition, supplementation strategies, and a whole lot more. So stand by. Hey, and welcome to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Ecklebarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills, and thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you joining us here and watching the NSP Nutrition Show or listening if you're hearing it on the podcast. Today, we've got a great show for you. We're going to be talking about the most common shoulder training mistakes. And, a lot of injuries happen on your shoulders or even your upper area in your shoulders if you're not having proper form. So I'm glad that we're going to be going over this. And also, we've got some amazing fan questions from you guys, so we appreciate that content as well. All right, so let's get started, Arman. Where did this topic come from? Were you watching other people in the gym with that bad technique and form, or what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the funny thing is I see it in almost every gym. And even I train in the geriatric Anytime Fitness gym here in Crystal River because it's an older community. And it's just amazing what you see. I mean, it truly is. But I see it with people that, I see stupid mistakes being made by people that I don't want to say they're stupid. I'm just going to say mistakes that they're making because they don't realize what they're doing, even for people in pretty good shape. It's just because they just don't know.
I think the thing I've seen the most is I don't want to say improper form or anything like that, because I see a lot of different things. But when somebody just gets up and sets the weight and they pump it out as fast as they can, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like they're doing something impressive, like, hey, look at me, look how fast I'm doing this. I think that's the one thing I've seen the most of that I just don't understand. But kind of curious, Arman, where do you want to start on this?
Yeah, good question. First off, I think the biggest thing that really amazes me is that even the well-trained athletes that I see training they're doing shoulder presses and going to completely. They think that just by doing shoulder presses, it's going to completely develop your shoulders. And that is not the case. I mean, just doing a shoulder press is not going to develop the entire shoulder. And I just can't believe that people actually believe that, because you have other people that experts, so to speak, that you just do a compound exercise, it'll take care of it. Well, no, if you want nice shoulders, that's not going to happen. Okay. I mean, if you want full development and getting them nice and round, just doing shoulder presses of any type is not going to get you there. And Vince Girona figured that out a long time ago. And that's how he was able to, he figured out you got to train them a specific way. And, people, I guess they don't quite understand that.
So in doing shoulder presses, is that something that you should really do at all then?
Yeah. I mean, it's a compound exercise. So it's important to include it in your routine. But there are other movements that isolate and get the development that you're going to need to get all the different sides of the shoulder. You have the side of the shoulder and you got the back of the shoulder and obviously the front of the shoulder. So, you want to develop all the muscles evenly. But at the same time, just doing the shoulder presses as you're like what I see happening, they'll do the shoulder presses first to use heavy weight, and then they want to go do the isolation exercises. And I get that, and that'll work for a period of time. But that's really not the best way if you want to really activate and get good shoulder development, in my opinion. So I prefer to warm up with a shoulder press because it is a compound movement. So it gets your tricep engaged and your front shoulder and all the other areas. And with that, I'll use machine, barbell, dumbbells, and, even cables for that matter. But because it's a compound exercise, it warms the whole area up. So I like to do it for that. But when it comes to really getting a lot of shoulder development, what I found works really well is doing pre-exhaust work by isolating the sides and the back of the shoulders, and then finish with the compound exercise since your triceps are still fresh, so you can further fatigue. It's the same concept I use for chest training. I like to do fly work before I start going into heavy presses because I want to isolate and get the muscle activated. So that's, and with that being said, another thing is on shoulder presses is as your strength improves, I do not feel it's really a good idea, especially with doing compound movements, heavy dumbbell presses. I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people injure their shoulders is using dumbbells for the presses. Now, I'm not saying you don't want to do them. I'm just saying when you start getting really strong, because I've been through this myself, like when you start doing 80-pound, 90-pound dumbbell presses, which I've done, the problem is getting them up there properly without straining yourself, and then after you get done, unloading them properly without straining yourself. So I'm not a big fan of doing heavy dumbbell presses, and I really don't believe you're going to miss a whole lot of development by not doing super heavy dumbbell presses. I do know this: you're more likely to get injured just because the way you get the weight in place and you dismount. Unless you got two spotters on each side, they know exactly what you're doing. To me, it's not worth the effort. So I don't recommend that. I'd rather do something barbell related, machine related, or even, again, it has to be in a situation where you have the heavyweight stacked, but you can get in and out of the heavyweight without putting your shoulder in a bad position. So that's my, key thing I want to mention there.
Well, that's a lot of good information about that. And I'm kind of curious, that's one area that you're focused on. Have you seen some other mistakes as well in the gym in this area?
Yeah, you kind of alluded to that earlier, is you see people that are trying to swing the weight or use as much momentum as possible to, move the weight. And it could be lightweight or it could be heavyweight, but they think that the faster they move something, because they're focused on counting reps, I think in most cases, they think that's doing something, and it really isn't. I mean, it's the same thing as, kipping or CrossFit. They think doing these kipping movements actually do something for your muscles, and all you're doing is tearing the hell out of your joint. It's the last exercise I'd recommend to anybody for me. So I'm more of the slow controlled. Try to feel the muscle working, focus on it. So do the movement slower, get that mind muscle link working so you can engage as much muscle fiber as possible. You have to get your brain to function as well to engage the muscle fibers. Just moving the weight around, you're going to get minimal. You're going to get minimal effect. And the reason I can say this is because I already did all that, and I thought I was doing something, but at the end of the day, the development wasn't coming, and then I had other people comment, you might want to do that a little slower. So what I'm talking about here is using a tempo that's more controlled. So like a 4-1-1-2 or 4-1-1-1. So what that basically means as far as tempo is the speed of how you raise and lower the weight. So a 4 count just means how you're lowering the weight. So it's a 4 count negative, and then you have a 1 count stretch at the bottom. You still have tension on the muscle, so you don't relax. And then you do a 1 count positive, where you're raising the weight. All right. And then after that, you get into the contracted position and then hold that for a 1 to 2 count as well. So a 4-1-1-2 is going to be the 4 count negative, 1 count stretch, 1 count positive, 2 count static hold to contract the muscle a lot, and then repeat. Now the 4-1-1-1 is you're only going to contract the muscle for 1 second and then start the process over again. So if you do these things, you're going to notice more engagement. You're going to notice more activation of muscle tissue, and basically going to fatigue a lot quicker. That's what really happens to it. All right. So I think that's really important. But you want to keep that in mind for all exercises. Moving the weight really rapidly, people are like, oh, I want to get power. I want to get power.
Right.
Well, power comes from the positive. Power isn't coming from the negative. Okay. So if you want to get more power, then focus on the 1 count up. But the negative is what actually activates a lot more muscle fiber, and you're also stronger. So use that as a leverage for you versus just missing it all together and coming down really fast. And also, it takes the momentum out of the joint so you don't get strains, which a lot of people do because they're just doing things way too fast because they're trying to get as many reps as they can to see how they'll do. It's like the person that wants to do push-ups and they want to see if they can do 100 push-ups. Well, they're doing them rocket fast. Okay, well, that doesn't do anything for you. Are you getting a push-up done? Yeah, but trying to doing them rocket fast is like it's a zero-sum game. You're not getting anything out of that because
Mm-hmm.
you're just kidding yourself. Anyways, so I just want to highlight that.
All no, no, all of that's really good stuff. All right, so what's next, Armin?
Well, the one that really irritates me personally is people doing front lateral raises, and for some reason, uh, every gym has people doing these front lateral raises, and it's like they actually really focus on them, and unfortunately, it's like uh, they don't realize that's not doing a whole lot. If you're doing any kind of pressing movement, you're getting your front shoulders. So every time you train your chest, or every time you do a pressing movement, you're getting your front shoulder. So what you're basically doing is you're wasting your time. I want to emphasize this: wasting your time. Okay, so stop doing that. All right. Now, if you feel like you have to do it, well, then go ahead and do it. But it's like almost to me, like in my gym, I see it all the time. I mean, it's ridiculous how often I see it. It's like somebody's done a seminar on front lateral raises, and that's what you need to do for whatever reason. I mean, it's like it makes absolutely no sense. Okay, it's
Hmm.
a worthless exercise. All right. Again, just remember, you're working your shoulders all the time when you're doing pressing movements of any type. So they're getting that. And, and what you'll end up doing if you do continue to do it, you're going to overdevelop your front shoulder where it makes your chest look more shallow. That's the offset. So think about that if you're really stuck on doing front lateral raises. And then, I mean, these people are doing 3 and 4 sets or even more. Like they're going to really get something out of this, dude. That's like the person that does abdominal work every day, and they do like 200 or 300 reps of movements. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's stupid. It's worthless. It makes no sense. So wherever you got the information from, throw it in the trash. Relook at what you're doing. If you want more results, if not, well then that's on you.
Right, right. That's good stuff. All right, so what would be another one that you could talk about?
This one is also really interesting too, and I've seen this. You'll see it in different videos and stuff where people are trying to help people out. But people think that if you use a neutral grip where your palms are facing each other and you're pressing up, that only works the front shoulder, and that's not true. That works the whole entire shoulder as well. So don't think that you always have to have a pronated grip where your hands are to your side and you're pressing up as the only way you train your shoulders. It's just as effective to do the neutral grip, and really though, it's safer. It's much safer on the shoulder joint because there's very little impingement on the joint by doing a neutral grip where you're pressing up. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it does not matter which grip you're using. Now, if you like a grip because you seem to feel a little bit better, that's fine. But I've done it both ways, and they're very effective. All right, so don't let somebody go, well, all you're working is your front shoulder there. They don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Gotcha, gotcha. Uh, all right, so what's next?
All right, so this is Vince Gironda. He really promoted the upright row, and you got a lot of exercise physiologists or exercise experts that throw the upright row out of the bus. It's an impingement on the joint. It does all these bad things. That's true if you're doing it wrong, and that's what most people are doing. They're doing it wrong. They're not using a shoulder width grip, and they're bringing their grip in way too close, close to the chin or inside the chest, and that's really not even working your shoulders. Okay, and that is going to cause an impingement if you do it that way. But if you have the shoulder width grip, your shoulders are going to lay naturally and come up naturally the way they should, and you're going to get a really good effect from it. But so many people they got this grip so close, whether it's using a cable or a barbell or dumbbells, and they just don't realize that that's not really working your shoulders. That's not working them at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they I don't get it. They they just keep doing it irregardless. And if something you're doing when it comes to training and you're not really feeling it, step back and do a little more research. There's plenty of things. Now, unfortunately, some of it's misguided, but there's plenty of resources to learn more about how to do an exercise effectively these days. So it's not like it's a mystery and you need somebody to hold your hand doing it. You just you
Right.
just experiment with it. I mean, Vince figured that out a long time ago, and he mastered how to do an upright row. And it is a good shoulder developer, but a lot of people throw him on the bus because they don't think it's effective, and or they feel like you're going to cause an injury. So, oh, one other thing. sometimes people use it way too much weight on that exercise. It's not
Oh,
about heavy weight on that. So, and if you do that, yeah, you could cause a joint problem because you're heaving the weight, but it's not the exercise that's the problem, is what I want to emphasize. It's how you're doing it.
yeah, yeah. All of this is making a lot of sense. I'm sure you got more. You got some more things for us?
Oh yeah. All right, but so let's say this. I really can't believe it, but I've seen even in video demonstrations, um, basically people that like one guy has won several Olympias, and he does his shoulder workout, and he goes from a barbell shoulder press to a dumbbell shoulder press to a machine shoulder press, and I'm looking at it going, why are you doing that? You're working. It's the same damn exercise. They're not. So why are you shifting from one to the other? I mean, it just didn't make any sense. I see people do that. They'll do the press behind the neck, which I don't recommend that either. I did that for years. I don't recommend it at all because it does cause an impingement on the joint, and it's really not that beneficial. So you want to keep your hands into the center of your body when you're doing your pressing. If you're going to use a pronated type grip, okay. If you're using a neutral grip, it doesn't matter. You're covered, okay. But just going from the one shoulder exercise to another exercise that are all compound movements is
Mm-hmm.
a waste of time. You're going to be much better off just picking one compound movement for that workout and using it. And the next time you train to keep it fresh, use a different compound movement. So maybe one day it's machine presses. The next time you train shoulders, maybe that's going to be a barbell press. Next time
Mm-hmm.
you train shoulders, maybe that's going to be a cable press. And then the next time, then maybe it is going to be a dumbbell press. Okay. So just want to highlight that use your brain on this stuff. Okay. And then the thing is if you're doing it that way, you're just doing a bunch of sets that you're wasting time. I mean, if you're going to do a high volume, just do the same exercise and do a bunch of volume. But going from the same compound movement to another compound movement to another compound movement makes no sense. So don't do that. You're wasting your time.
Absolutely. All right. So what's next?
All right. To me, I don't think it's a good idea to do shoulder presses, especially heavy behind the neck, like I mentioned before. And then even though I used to do them, because I just think that you're going to get a joint problem. And I see a lot of people still doing the shoulder press with the barbell behind the neck. So I want to caution. Now, I will say this: Vince had a press that you go behind the neck and then over your head and then to the front of your chest. It's called the Vince shoulder barbell shoulder press. And it's called a back and forth press is another name. Now, the difference with doing that movement versus just doing a barbell shoulder press behind the neck is that's a short range of motion. That bar only comes up just above your head to go back and forth. So that's a different effect. So,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's not designed to go super heavy. So that exercise is actually still good. But doing heavy barbell presses behind the neck, I think you're looking to get an injury, and I see it a lot. So, and once you injure your shoulder, that's a huge problem. So that you need to be focused on not getting injuries. It's good to test the waters with some strength, but you need to do it in a safe, controlled manner because once you got an injury, it's going to affect everything. It affects your back exercises, it's going to affect your chest exercises because the shoulder is not where it needs to be. So I really recommend doing your barbell presses to the front, close to the neck, and then pressing up. You're going to be much safer that way and have less issues. All right. So I just don't recommend doing the barbell behind the neck press, and especially heavy.
Yeah. That actually really kind of makes a lot of sense. Going behind your neck, that awkward motion and movement doesn't seem like
Yeah.
it would be good news, right? Um, you know, honestly, Armin, I don't know how the audience is feeling right now, but I really had no idea that training shoulders effectively was this involved. Gosh, so what else do you have for us?
All right. So then, no one seems to know how to train the real delts, which is really important. And so you don't see enough emphasis on working that area, and that makes a big difference how it affects your back training and other movements. So, if you want a good round shoulder, you have to learn how to train your rear delts. And I got to say, it's not the easiest thing to learn because it's just a very small muscle that lays on the backside of your shoulder. But if you hit it the right way and get it developed, your shoulders will be so nice and round. It's really impressive. And all the best physique athletes, they have good shoulders, the best ones. Okay. There's no weakness. It's like perfectly circular almost. So you need to engage how to train that. So one of the things that you want to continue to do is focus on it because it does take a lot of mind muscle link as well to really get to feel the contraction. And so people just kind of don't do it because they can't seem to do it, so can't seem to figure it out, or they just throw the weight back and forth and they don't get the angle right. So one of the things I think it would help a lot of people is if you want to learn how to engage that rear deltoid muscle, then I'd recommend using a rear delt machine or pec deck. Or you take the pec deck and you go the opposite direction and use a overhand pronated grip, not a neutral grip, but overhand pronated grip. So that when you bring your arms back, they're straight, okay, and you can feel that muscle engage as you bring them all the way back to contract them. So I think that's really good thing to help people with that. And again, as you're bringing the arms back, and again, your arms are straight, you should keep coming back until you can feel that muscle engage. And it takes a little while to do it. So start with light weight, but if you feel like you're not feeling much, and add a little more weight just till you start to engage it. But if you work your rear delts the right way, you're gonna get a nice developed shoulder. And then again, you still got to do the side of the shoulders, but there's plenty of lateral movements and machines that can help you with that, and cables. So you have a lot of variety, and that's just a matter of using your hand position, which Vince highlights the most effective ways to do that. I mean, he was a master at good shoulder development.
Well, we've talked about a lot of different exercises and grips and positions and all that good stuff. My question I always ask is, what about sets and reps? Can you get into that a little bit?
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. And I see a lot of people do weird stuff with that too. Some people think you have to do a super high rep, and some people don't, you're just trying to do really heavy work and minimal reps. But in my opinion, the most important thing is if you just when you're doing your sets and reps, let's talk about sets. If you're the person that just keeps doing straight sets, you do a set of 6 to 10 reps, rest, do a set of 6 to 10 reps, and rest. Over time, your central nervous system is going to pick that up, and you're not going to get much development. And this is a chronic problem with all exercises for people in the gym. They keep doing this: do a set and rest, do a set and rest, or progressive overload. They're going to add more weight. Okay, that works to a point, but if you want to get good development, you got to get out of your comfort zone and increase that intensity. And that's not going to be from just doing straight sets. So I just want to bring that up. If you're looking to get better results, or if you're already flatline, stop doing straight sets and start looking at more higher intensity exercises like supersets and other things, which we'll touch on that quickly. But I like to do 12 to 15 sets for my shoulders. I just found that works real well. And I like to do 6 to 12 reps as heavy as possible with good form. I mean, when you use good form and you're going heavy, you're going to activate more muscle fiber, but it's an adjustment as well. And even when you're doing that, you have to really, again, focus on how you're feeling the muscle, how it is fatigue. And if you're feeling the fatigue really well, when you start to lose range of motion, that means you're on point with it. So then as you improve, then you want to start working on even higher intensity to really stimulate that much more muscle fiber. But for me, it's 12 to 15 sets, and then 6 to 12 heavy reps with a good form. Now, on top of that, I'd also like to, like I mentioned before, if you increase the intensity by doing supersets and trisets and giant sets, you're going to see a really good development from the shoulder area. I mean, you just want to push as much blood into that area because you use your shoulders all the time. And so they're like the calf muscle. They can handle a lot of endurance because you're always moving around, raising your arm up and down, raise your arm to the side. So I think doing these higher volume, when pushing a lot of blood to them type of intensity sets works the best. I just found it worked really good for me. So keeping a quick pace, so you keep that blood in there and then really fatiguing that muscle, you're going to get much better results, in my opinion.
Well, we're unfortunately running out of time. How would you like to wrap all this up? A lot of great information.
All right. So, in my opinion, you got to have a plan if you're going to train your shoulders. And with that, you need to make sure that you're hitting all three heads, and that's really important if you want to get the best gains. Okay, because you'll see your strength will also go up as you get all three heads engaged, especially on your presses. Anyways, if that's something that's important to you, focus on feeling the areas that you're training. Okay, and engage that muscle as much as possible. So use slow, controlled manner type movements, and then hit that way you can hit as many fibers as possible because you got to do enough work to fatigue all the muscle fibers, the slow twitch, the two medium twitch, and the fast twitch. That's what's important. And then finally, it's probably a good idea not to follow what other people who are in the gym doing unless you know they are a professional. Because I see there's so much shit that's just absolutely wrong at so many levels. Don't do that. But that's what you see have happen. People see somebody do something in the gym, like, oh, I'm going to try that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
kind of rethink that. And again, there's plenty of things you can look up online to learn more at this point in time. Yeah, there's YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. I mean, I have that. It's on my channel. If you want to learn how to do shoulder exercises, go to my channel, and you can learn that for free. You just pull it up, and I do a demonstration and even explain what I'm doing on the shoulder movement, which should be helpful. So do those things to get more out of your time and stop following the crowd and the herd because they're going right off the cliff.
Yeah, you know, Armin, I can't stress enough everything that you're saying. You have continued to reiterate proper form, taking your
Yeah.
time and having a count to get the maximum effectiveness for your workout. And that's why you're in the gym or why you're working out in the first place. So, if you want that, listen to what Armin's saying. The count, the timing, the form, it really is the
Yeah.
key.
Yeah. Well, it works well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Armin, a lot of great information. I'll tell you what, I hope
Uh,
everybody learned something from that. I sure did. And like I said, we're out of time. We're going to take a quick break. Stand by for a quick word from NSP Nutrition, and Armin and I will be right back.
Hey, and welcome back to the NSP Nutrition Show. I'm Arman Ecklebarger.
Hey, I'm Frank Mills, and hey, you just heard from NSP Nutrition. Just to let you guys know, this is Men's Health Month, and on the website right now, 20% off all selected supplement or on selected supplements, and also 30% off all digital books. So
Okay, cool.
all of Vince's content up there, 30% off. If it's something that you've been looking for or wanting, don't wait. Get it today. A great deal, 30% off, Armin, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, guys, take advantage and check out nspnutrition.com. All right. So it's time for our fan questions, topics. And last week we did a show and we were talking and got a question about footwear. Well,
Oh, yeah.
Renee up in Toronto, Canada, saw the show, and Renee wants to know, guys, you talked about the footwear, but what type of sock is proper to wear with the footwear? I've seen thick, heavy socks. I've seen thin, sheer socks. I guess they both have advantages and disadvantages. Armin, what is your preference? And that's from Renee in Toronto.
That's a really good question because I do have a preference. You just don't think about these things, but these little details, and they can make a difference. So, all right, for me, if I'm doing leg work, I want a thicker sock. I want my foot to be as snug in that shoe as possible. So I prefer a thicker sock. Now, if I'm doing upper body and that kind of thing, I like a thinner sock because if I'm sweating, I want to get air to my feet a little easier because that's more comfortable to me. But if I'm doing leg work, it needs to be a thicker sock because I want that foot to fit in there and that shoe nice and tight so nothing's moving around and I'm getting maximum footing as I'm moving the weight. So it does make a difference. but it's also a personal preference. So I would say this, you know, if you're using a thinner socket, that's fine, but just make sure that your foot in that shoe is going to be solid when you're doing leg work, because it does make a difference to me. So that's what I would have to say.
Interesting. All right, Renee. Well, hopefully that answers the question. And
Good
thanks for
question.
that. We appreciate it. Arman, next question is from Samuel. And
Mhm.
Samuel's out in San Diego, California. And Samuel wants to know, in regards to working out, he sees guys in the gym and they kind of wrap up their wrists or their elbows, knee.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
And
another we could do a whole story on.
yeah. And his thought process is when he sees that is if you have a difficulty with that area, he sees him using heavy weight. Why are you using heavy weight if you have an injury or a bad arm or a sore reel? So why don't they do lightweight? And are wraps even effective? So that's kind of his question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's another really good question. I'm not a big fan of wraps at all. I used to use them a little bit just to kind of experiment, but what happens is guys don't want to lower the weight, so they're getting some tendonitis, and so if they use the wrap, they'll get some temporary relief, so they can continue to train heavy. But all they're doing is making it worse. So a lot of people don't know how to check their ego at the door, as far as I'm
Mm-hmm.
concerned, because wraps are really not necessary if you're doing things right. I don't care if if you have an injury and you need to rehabilitate. Okay, well, let's use a wrap until it's rehabilitated. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But the stupid stuff I see with people doing all these wraps, and well, also wraps are used to help you use more weight, so they can be used for that. But again, you need to be careful with that, because just because you're using more weight doesn't necessarily mean it's not putting extra pressure on the joint. And that's
Right.
why people get a lot of joint problems, because they're using super heavy weight and the range of motion isn't even that great. I mean, if you watch them, their range of motion isn't good, but they're all about the weight. So that's the biggest problem. They're all about moving the weight, and they don't want to come in and not be strong like they've always been. And because again, you need to check your ego at the door, because there's going to be days when you're shining, and there's going to be days where you got to struggle and get through it.
Right.
That's just how life
Right.
rolls. And I went through all that. It's a psychology game, and I didn't like it if I couldn't lift as much weight as I lifted before. But also, you got to you get plenty of humble pie as you progress through things, because things don't work the way you think they would or you're hoping they would. So then you got to step back and reevaluate what you're doing and be smart about it. But most of the guys who are using these wraps, if they have these injuries, it's just going to make it worse, and it's going to make it a long-term injury. So how much sense does that make? So yeah, he's doing the right thing. Don't use wraps unless you do have an injury. Then use it temporarily to rehabilitate the area, and then get rid of them to strengthen the joint and to keep it where it needs to be. And if you're getting tendonitis, that means you need to drop the weight back and take some supplements like Joint Relief Pro that NSP has to help relieve that tendonitis, that stress. Then you can go right back to lifting heavy weight again, but you got to let the body recover. And that's where people make a lot of mistakes, and they have these chronic injuries, which it doesn't allow you to train. And I see so much of this stuff where people are complaining about all these problems they're having. It's because they're training improperly and not using their brain the right way. I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you have an area that's sensitive and causing you irritation, stop what you're doing that irritates it. Stop it. It's not helping you at all. It's just making it that much worse. So, great question.
All right, Samuel. Well, thank you so much for that question. And thank you for watching another show here, the NSP Nutrition Show. We appreciate it. We need your content, topics, and
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. Good
We
question.
appreciate it. And it helps a lot of people who actually watch the show. We appreciate it if you could share it with your friends, family. If we can make the impact to one person, boy, that's a terrific accomplishment for us.
Yeah. Yep.
So, all right. Well, that's it. Oh, and if you do need to contact us with that information, make sure you scan the QR code. You can do it that way. You can comment directly on the YouTube channel under the show
Mhm.
that you're watching, or you can email directly at support@nspnutrition.com. Arman, another great show. Thanks so much for all the info.
Yeah. No problem. Here to help.
All right. Appreciate it. Join Arman and I next week for a brand new episode of the NSP Nutrition Show.
Hey, thanks for checking out the NSP Show. Go to nspnutrition.com where you can find a whole heap of resources to help you achieve stunning definition and eye-popping levels of muscularity. Don't forget, you can save 10% on your first order by using the code NSP Show at the checkout. Catch you next time.